to the Buy Box Bandits podcast.
Welcome back to the Buy Box Bandits podcast, episode 36. Thank you guys for all the support lately. We had first video hit 1,000 views within like 24, 36 hours, which was amazing. And we hit 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. So to all our YouTube viewers and watchers, thank you guys. We have an awesome guest today, Michael with Mile High Hustle, who is a part-time reseller, mainly doing eBay, GOAT, hype shoes, that kind of thing, moving into Amazon as well. Me being someone who came from that world and transitioned out to being full-time Amazon, it'll be cool to kind of learn about all that stuff, what you got going on, Michael, how you got started and all that. So thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, man. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. Yeah. So he has, I might say, the best setup as well for the YouTube viewers here.
Yeah,
with,
it's
nice
definitely top
there.
two, top three. Yeah.
Yeah. So definitely. So do you want to take us back and kind of give us your origin story, how you got started with reselling, and then just get into that?
You want my reselling origin story, not
Yes.
my own origin story, because that's
we'll hear the reselling one.
Yeah, you guys are like younger than my kids. So I just turned 50 this year. So if you just back the clock up about 3 years ago, a little more than 3 years ago, I was sort of at an inflection point in my life. This is what happens when you get older. You guys will figure this out. You have kids, you have the career, things are great. You kind of get to a point where you got a little extra time on your hands because your kids are, no longer kids. And so like, what am I going to do? For me, the first option was I'm going to go golfing, because that's what my brother did. That's what my dad did. That's what my stepdad did. That's kind of what middle-aged guys do. And so dusted off the old golf clubs, went out, started trying to do that. But I realized pretty quickly that the only thing that golfing did is it left me poor and pissed off, because I leave the golf course, I would have spent some money and I'd be really frustrated because I'd never played as well as I wanted to. So I actually read a book by a guy named Michael Hyatt. The book is called Your Best Year Ever. If you haven't read it, I recommend it. Talks about goal setting, but not just general goal setting in every area of your life. And one of those areas is what he calls your avocation, meaning not your job, not your career, but something you do outside of your job or your career that you're focused on for yourself, for your own betterment. So I actually come from a retail background, spent many years running a bookstore. My dad actually owned pet stores. So I understood what it meant in terms of the business model to buy goods at one price, sell them at another. And I knew all the business metrics involved with that. And so I thought, well, that'd be kind of cool, but I'm not going to go start a retail store right now. That feels more like a job than a hustle. So I was just looking into ideas, and I have two teenage boys. One's about to be 20 actually in March, and a 17-year-old. And they were both kind of into sneakers. And I was on YouTube poking around, and this guy named Hustler Hacks popped up on YouTube.
Familiar with him. Yeah,
you guys
good
probably
guy.
heard of,
Yep.
Yeah, Glenn. And he's in El Paso. And he was doing this whole walk into Ross, walk into Burlington, buy a pair of J's for $49.99, flip them for $150. And I'm like, you can do that? And as a kid, like, I loved going garage sailing with my mom. We would do that on weekends. So the idea of being able to go and buy something and double, triple my money without actually having to have a storefront or deal directly with the customers, that was really appealing to me, and I could do it on my own time. So that week went down with my wife and my kids, went to the Ross, found two pair of, I think they were Nike Huarache 2K Kobe's, like high tops, and they were like $50 a pair. And at the time I was like, man, $100, it's a lot of money to spend. And I don't know if I'm going to get this back, but I'm going to try this. And I sold them, of course, and that just kind of began an obsession of sorts. So that was August of 2018, August of 2018, I think it was. And and then, kind of worked my way through on up to where I am now.
Yeah, and you actually came a few minutes late because you were at the Plato's Closet getting after it on the used shoes.
Man, talk about getting ratted out.
You can't get the RA out of your blood, no matter how hard you try. I love OA. I love sourcing online. It's made life a lot more convenient. but every now and then, man, you just gotta get out and chase the dragon. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So what's your core model in terms of, are you doing used items? Are you doing new items? Where are your main sources? All that, so we can get a sense of where you are right now.
Mostly new, mostly brick sneakers. So almost everything I get is not hype. I don't do a lot of hype, actually. What I do have in hype is primarily for me. That's just my collection. But most of the stuff I'm getting, I'm selling on eBay for, $100 to $150, and I'm sourcing it. My ROI, is probably, I'm targeting around 40%.
So talking about the hype shoes, most of our viewers on YouTube are going to see those 2 pairs behind you. Can you tell us the story behind those 2?
Yeah, well, interesting. I mean, as a 50-year-old guy, coming into this, I wasn't collecting sneakers. I have my own origin story. I grew up a military kid. Well, my mom remarried when I was in high school. I was a military kid. And so I was introduced to a lot of different types of music, but the one I gravitated to, with a lot of friends who were from all over the world, because we lived on a military base overseas, was hip hop. And this was like back in the day of KRS-One, De La Soul, bands you guys would never know about, the Fat Boys. And so back then, the sneaker of choice was Adidas, because and Fila, this was long before, maybe not long before, a few years before Jordan was really on the scene. And then I kind of dipped out of all of that after high school, went into college, didn't even get involved into the whole Jordan era, other than to watch him beat my Phoenix Suns in the early 90s, which was horrible.
You get life's good as a Suns fan now, though. I'd assume if you're still a
right
fan,
now,
yeah.
I am living it up. These are the days. These are right now. We gotta seal the deal. So, anyways, but once you get into this, you start doing this. You start hanging around with this group of people. What I love is, I love story. I think everybody has a story about them. And the cool thing about shoes is that they all have a story, whether it's the colorway or the silhouette or the manufacturer or who's behind it. There's always a story. And of course, with Jordan, at least for the first 13 models that he came out with, he played in those shoes. And I remember watching him play in those shoes. So for me, there's kind of a connection to when I was a bit younger. And I like that. And I just think they're cool. They're just something fun to collect, and you hold them for a while and then you let them go. Some of them, you just hold on to them forever.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I come from that world. Like you're talking about 2018, that's when reselling started clicking for me. Like Q4 2018, I had my first multi-$1,000 profit month, which was awesome at the time. Luckily kept building with that. Started the social media page as well back then. Definitely. And you're also all doing this part-time as well, right? You still have 9 to 5 and everything going on with that?
It's more than a 9 to 5, man. I actually have a career that I love. I know a lot of people get into this and they're doing it because they don't like their job and they're trying to find something to do. That's not the story for me. I love what I get to do. I actually publish books for a living.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So I get to work with authors and do really cool things. I've got an amazing, very talented group of people that I get to work with. And so, people talk about work-life balance, use phrases like 9 to 5. For me, it all just blends in. Life is just life. It's how you choose to spend your time. And so, I sort of do this in the margins, on the weekends and the evenings. I'll put the Suns game on in there and I'll be packing my orders, shipping them out. I may be sourcing in a meeting. You never know. Don't tell my boss.
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of your sourcing strategies, how are you going about finding items? Because specifically, like buying stuff online is really confusing to a lot of people, especially people who don't have a lot of time. It's obviously is more time efficient once you get it down. But what's your strategy for going out and finding items? Because as we all know, that's the hardest thing for people that are new once they pick up on all the other stuff. But sourcing is really what sets people apart.
Yeah. Well, I think like with anything, it's, wherever you devote your attention, you'll pick things up. And so initially for me, my biggest hill I had to climb was product knowledge. I didn't know shoes. And so I spent a lot of time reading about shoes, watching people on YouTube who knew about shoes. And you kind of get to a level where you feel comfortable, like going to Plato's, you can walk in and just kind of know what that shoe is worth without having to really look it up. The same thing I would say is true with sourcing. The more you spend time investing in finding shoes, the easier it will become. But like anything, you've got to get over that initial hurdle. I think it was it Malcolm Gladwell that said, if you want to be an expert in anything, you got to invest like 10,000 hours.
Yeah, something like that.
I don't know if that's the right number, but the point is that the more you invest your time and energy in something, the easier it'll become. For me, how I've been able to accelerate that learning curve is by being among a community of other resellers. I try to position myself around people who are smarter than I am, who've done it longer than I have, who've made mistakes that I don't have to make because they've made them. And so that actually materializes itself in my world in the form of a Discord I'm in called Heat Seekers.
Oh, bang. That was my absolute question, was how you went about that. Because basically every episode I say it is so important to get in the reselling community. That's where you pick up on nuance you won't find in YouTube videos. You'll make friends that then, one-on-one sharing stuff. I would much rather have my friends eat off stuff that I know than just the random people who find it on their own. Back last spring, Garrett and I, we started getting on Zoom calls and everything, built out a friend group, and that really took us forward. So do you want to kind of elaborate on the benefits of being in the community, just to once again reiterate to the people out here who are ghosting and aren't talking to people that know they should be, but don't maybe know how to get into it, and all that, because I can't speak on that enough.
100%. Yeah. What I found just kind of broadly in life and in business and now in reselling, which is a different kind of business for me, is that there's sort of two paths you can take. You can build an island under yourself and everything is a zero-sum game. I don't win unless you lose. Those kind of people will not go very far in life. They will not be successful. If you want to be successful, you have to build networks. You have to build relationships with other people. And so what I found is that you don't do that with a mind to, hey, I'm going to become your friend, or I'm going to be in your network so that I can get something. If that's the mentality I have going into it, that also is not a win for me. I've got to go into it saying, what can I give back? What can I help other people with? So like doing this interview, you guys didn't offer to give me anything. You just said, would you give us your time? Because for me, there's value in investing in other people, even knowing that you guys are like totally in another league on Amazon than I am. Like you said, there are going to be people watching this who are just getting started or thinking about it. So if I can help those people, awesome. So for me, we talked about like Glenn, Hustler Hacks guy, that dude, like I owe him so much just through his videos. And since then, like cool thing, right after Christmas, I think it was, I went on his show, which is sort of like a real full circle kind of crazy thing, right? So I would say how I got involved in this particular group started on Instagram, started through Glenn's videos. There was another guy kind of in the universe, and he just announced, I think on IG at some point, that they were starting a Discord. I didn't know, I kind of knew what Discord was. Like I said, I have teenage boys and I've used Slack in my professional environment.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I knew what the technology was. I didn't know what I was going to experience in this Discord group, which for those who don't know what that is, it's like a web-based or an app-based chat room. That's really all it is. It's organized by discussions and channels. And so they said, we're going to drop this thing. We're only going to open it up, I think, to like 100 people, and we're only going to open it up, or maybe they might have just said, we're just going to open up for 10 minutes and that's it. They didn't put a cap on the number. So I got in on that initial group. That was November of 2020. So right before, I guess it would have been, I can't remember, like COVID, everything blends together, but you can piece together the data. And, immediately for me, the things that I wasn't even doing OA. This is back when you could still walk into Ross and Burlington and buy, 15 pairs of cleats for $20 a pop and sell them for $130 each. So I wasn't necessarily joining at that time because I wanted to buy online as much as I thought these guys could share bolos and experience and other things. But quickly what I found out is that the difference maker for a lot of these guys is they were able to really multiply their energy or their investment of time by shopping online rather than having to go out and hit all these brick and mortar stores. And so they're posting links in there. Now you can go find links to deals on Twitter. You can find links on websites. The problem is that I don't have the time to go out and find all these things. I need someone to curate the best links for me. and I need them to do it in a way where they actually also give me the business intelligence that I need to make a good decision. Like how much is this going to sell for, and on what marketplace, and at what velocity. And so by providing that, I'm able to make a quick decision, because these links, especially for the really fire deals, you're only going to be able to get in on them for 10 or 15 minutes, maybe, before everything's gone. So you got to be quick.
It's crazy. Back in the day, speaking on the Twitter accounts, like 3 years ago, some of the big ones, now they're huge, hundreds of thousands of followers, but they didn't have a ton of followers. And I used to literally have my post notifications on and source off those. And interestingly enough, so after the 3 years ago, late 2018, I ended up I had those good months, and then I spread myself way too thin, trying to thrift stuff, trying to hit Marshalls, and trying to do apps type of stuff. And I'm curious if you've ever run into that, or if you've always been zeroed in on one model, and I'm curious your experience with that.
Say the question again, if I picked up on the question.
Yeah. So I have experimented a lot with the stuff you've found success with. Haven't had a ton of success with it because I've really spread myself too thin. And I'm curious if you've ever run into that, because when you hear shoes in general, there's a bunch of marketplaces you can do it on it. There's a bunch of ways you can get them.
Yeah. For me, I mean, that's, I'm all about, again, for me, I think that the biggest factor has to be about efficiency and maximizing my margins. So, and not just my profit margins, but my time margins, right?
Ooh, I like that. I really, really like that. Yeah, definitely.
Well, I mean, like I said, my first priority, at least in terms of my vocation, is my career. And I have to make sure that at no point do they ever feel like they're playing second fiddle. And it's not a surprise. I mean, I can do this. There are actually people in my industry that know I do this, or people I work, my boss knows I do this, but they trust me because they know where my first priority is. And let's face it, in this day and age, everybody has a side hustle. I know so many people that I work alongside of that are either consulting, doing, consulting on the side of what they do in their day job. So for me, maximizing my time has to be my number one priority. So I have never been one to try to do all of the platforms. I think at the height, I was on eBay, Mercari. I tried Posh for a minute. That was stupid. I don't even understand that ridiculous.
Me as well.
I did a little bit of Facebook Marketplace. You just dabble here and there. eBay has always been number one for me, only because I knew the sheer size of the marketplace, and it was the first one I picked up on. I didn't even know Amazon was an option, I'll be honest with you. And what's crazy is, being a bookseller and being a publisher, I probably have more exposure to Amazon than maybe you guys do from a different perspective. Because I've been either competing with them or selling into them for years. But what's been cool is that I've actually learned more, particularly about their data and how things perform on their platform, being a reseller, than I have as a publisher. So for me, the margin piece was not a big deal. But right now, I've just in the last year, I made a decision. I was like, I'm not going to mess with Mercari, and I'm not going to mess with StockX anymore, because you have to do all this cross posting and keeping track of what's selling where. And I'm like, if I just do a really good job over here, chances are I can make up whatever I'd lose in these other 2 or 3 smaller marketplaces. So that's where I'm going to put my energy.
Yeah, that's a good point. So obviously you were very comfortable with what you were doing. What intrigued you about making that transition to Amazon, and how did that play out?
Profit.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact of the matter is, Amazon is if you couple YouTube in with Google, Amazon is the second largest search engine that there is.
Oh, for sure.
So,
definitely.
So that speaks to a number of things, right? But the first thing it speaks to is just the massive size of their audience that they reach. The other thing is that, I'm old enough to remember when Amazon was literally just a bookseller with literally just an HTML1 website and links on the homepage, and when they were losing so much money because they were selling books at a loss, but they did all of that to grow their business model, right? Jeff Bezos for years told shareholders, just hang on, because he knew what he was doing. Because what happened was, he got to such a place of consumer trust that people don't even blink they literally skip over steps that they would normally make when they're standing in a mall making a purchase decision. They don't even have those, like that friction is gone in an Amazon environment. And the reason I'm saying that is because they go brain dead and make stupid decisions, paying prices for things on Amazon that they would never pay for if they walked into a finish line to buy a pair of Air Force Ones that cost $110, but on Amazon they're paying $250 for. So when you ask me why did I go to Amazon, it's because I saw enough people selling the same shoes I was selling on eBay for twice the price. And even though I wasn't paying fees, although eBay's now reinstituted fees on sneakers, they were still more than covering the 15% Amazon fee, and doing it at a velocity that was so much faster than I was doing on Amazon. I thought, I just can't miss out on this anymore.
Yeah, I mean, we're all in the same boat. So getting started with Amazon, what sort of softwares have you been leveraging, and what kind of steps did you take to learn those?
Yeah, I'm still learning. Just started out with Seller Central, like everybody probably does, which is, Amazon's back end, and quickly realized that, especially once you start getting into FBA, which is taking products, boxing them up and shipping them into their warehouses, Seller Central starts to fall down a bit. So I've just picked up Inventory Lab, and I've only started using that in the last, in fact, I'm still on my 30-day free trial.
Oh, wow. That's good though. Yeah, you get to test it out, not invest any money, and you've seen that it's far superior, that it's pretty much necessary.
Yeah, it will be. Once I get all the kinks worked out and get it, I think from a reporting perspective, and certainly from a batching perspective, which is the process you go through to ship orders into FBA, I think it'll be a lot easier. And then I'm also using, I think the one that I enjoy the most is Keepa, which is a web, a browser plugin you use with Chrome. That basically plugs in using Amazon's API and pulls in all of their backend data set to tell you sales performance. So that helps you to analyze a product on its Amazon product page to know, do I want to invest in this? Is this a product I want to buy to sell? And that's a tool that we've actually started using in my day job. I have my sales director on the book side using that now.
Yeah. And for those of our listeners doing RA, and I don't know if you know this, there's also a Keepa app that's really helpful if you're in store. Yeah. Okay, cool. You just mentioned the Chrome extension. Fantastic. All right. So a question that we don't ask all of our listeners, which we definitely should, that I'm curious your answer about, is what's the best flip you've ever had? It could be most you've ever sold of one item, could be the best margin you've ever had on a single item. Let's hear it.
Man, that's putting me on the spot. I'd have to go back because it's like thousands of things that I've sold. Let me think here. Well, the one I it wasn't a lot of money, but it was just fun because it was earlier on in my reselling career, and I was just shopping on Facebook Marketplace. And some lady had listed a pair of Dornbecker foams, which Dornbecker has
awesome
a relationship.
Story. Awesome story with those.
And so there was they were just these foam posits, and they were dead stock. And I probably shouldn't say how she got them. She didn't get them illegally, but she has a relationship, I think, through some sporting association. So anyways, I picked them up for like $80 and I flipped them for like 600. And I thought that was the coolest thing ever. I would say most recently, the Jordan mids they're just going crazy. So right now, inventory is tough to get a hold of. EU has changed some things around. Nike's changed some things around selling from the EU into the States. They made it tougher. But right before that happened, I was able to get a hold of a good chunk of some mids and flip those on Amazon for good money.
I know people have been killing it with those types of you wouldn't think of them as Amazon type items, but there's kind of over the last year, there's been a mass migration from like a lot of the hype shoe kids, like my generation, to Amazon. And that's a good move in my opinion. It's been interesting to see all that stuff going down. Now, actually during the pandemic, I sold a lot of that type of stuff. Definitely. And so in terms of like the biggest difference you see between Amazon and the other platforms, what are those? Could be positive, could be negative and all that. Cause a lot of people out here, if you're brand new, probably just sell some old stuff you have on eBay and then start looking into Amazon
Yeah.
with these different types of platforms. But what are like positives and negatives you've seen between those? Is I definitely have some in my head.
Sure. I'll give you the negatives first so we end on a positive note. How's that?
Yeah.
So the first negative I would say is the competition between sellers. There's just a lot of shady folks on Amazon that know how to game the system and try to block you from selling your products.
On those listings, on the Air Forcey type listings, absolutely. Garrett, Danny, and I were at war on some of the Air Force listings last spring with people about stuff like
They
that.
would buy
Yeah.
inventory, cancel it, buy, cancel it, buy,
And
cancel
I
it.
haven't hit
There's a lot
anything
goes
like
on.
that since. Like a lot, I guess, on whatever items I'm doing now, we're dealing with a lot of good business.
Yeah, it probably has to do with shoes, which by the way, we could, if you're interested, we can talk a little bit about other than shoes, but within the shoes in particular, it's highly competitive to the point where, because there's such a limited quantity of any particular SKU. And so, everybody who's in these types of Discord groups will find the same links. They all go buy them. They all put them on Amazon. And then it's a race to the bottom on the price. So what happens is some schmo will get on there and he'll be like, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go add yours to my cart so you can't sell it on some bogus account. So basically removes yours from sale. That's been really frustrating for me. And it doesn't happen all the time, but it's, it can be really frustrating, especially if you invest a lot, you send stuff into FBA, and then it gets held up because somebody's being a dork. So you have to learn how to, how to game the system a little bit. There's little tricks you can do to get around it, but it's not fun. And I think the other thing is just kind of some of the voodoo magic behind Amazon's thinking on who wins the buy box, particularly on shoes. You never know. I mean, it's always amazing to me. I'll go in and look at a shoe and nobody has the buy box. It'll just say, see other options. And like, there's a list of 15 people. I'm like, you couldn't give one person the buy box. So, just to try to figure that out, but that probably is more a function of just my ignorance and still being new to the game on Amazon. I'm sure I'll get there. In terms of what I like, I mean, obviously, the pricing is, being able to price much higher. And contrary to popular opinion, you don't have to price the lowest to get the buy box.
Absolutely not.
True.
You have to be FBA and you have to be priced competitively. And the more you sell of an item, you can go look at
100%.
buy box Bandit exclusive tip. Look at the buy box statistics. You can see what percentage of buy box people are getting. And just another point in terms of if you're ever dealing with people canceling your orders like crazy, if you have quantity of item, one thing you can do is put order limits on it.
That's
so it
one of the
limits
ways
the amount they can add to cart.
Yeah.
Yeah, usually on shoes, it's pretty easy to limit it to one per order,
Yep.
So if you have multiples, but a lot of times, like for me, especially doing FBM, I had one pair. And so they'd steal my only pair. On those mids I was talking about though, where I was able to get a good quantity, even though I was $20 higher per pair than other people, even in the Discord, I was selling them. And the more I sold, the more I sold. Does that make sense? Like it felt like it just kind of had like
totally. Because they see the trust. They see that people are having a good customer experience.
Right. Yep. So I would say, I'd say that's, and then of course, the nice thing about Amazon, and this is a double-edged sword, is, they treat the customer well. The experience of selling is good. You don't have to deal with the customer, but when you do, that's the other side of the sword. Amazon customers are some of the most ridiculous people in the world in terms of their level of expectations. Because Amazon has set the bar so high. And the truth of the matter is, like, I just read an article this week. There was a guy, I don't remember where he was at. I want to say on the East Coast somewhere. This guy's a dermatologist. Okay, like, dude makes good money in his day job, and he was running this Amazon scam where he was ordering products and sending back inferior products, and he had over $300,000 in products sitting in his house, stuff that he had bought, and then he'd ship back an inferior product and then open some kind of a claim on it. And that's a crazy exaggerated example, but there are a lot of people, especially in shoes, that'll do a switcheroo. So they'll order a pair of shoes from you, and then they'll take an old pair and ship them back to you and try to get their money back, or they'll wear them for 3 weeks, trash them, send them back. but I haven't had too much of that. I mean, my experience has really been the opposite. I've had maybe one pair in 5 months of selling on Amazon.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's been super profitable, obviously, in the grand scheme of things. That
build it
happens
into
once
your
every
costs.
5 months. Exactly.
Yep.
And when you're doing arbitrage, worst comes to worst, you can return stuff if it doesn't sell.
Sure.
And all that. So in terms of a lot of people getting started with reselling, like we talked about earlier, they're doing it to save up for a house, to do this, whatever. I'm curious if you have set any goals like that, hit any goals like that. Because it's interesting to hear that you like what you do in, what you got going on with your day job and everything. I'm just curious if the monetary part of Amazon has had, or just reselling has had like big impact on your life, or if you just, like doing it and everything.
No, it's been significant. I mean, obviously when you start with 2 pairs of shoes, everything for the first year, at least for me, was just taking the profits and plowing them back into the business. But last year I took, I think, 25 grand out. And that was tremendously helpful for us because, I didn't actually start saving for retirement until I was 40. And so I was way behind the 8 ball. And, and that's sort of the American slave force. They want you, sort of locked into that mindset.
It's not taught in school.
Right.
It's not taught in school.
No, and so they want you to put in your, work till I'm 65, 67 years old and then, live off of Social Security. And it's just not a good, so I was like, man, I got to get caught up. I need a plan. I had a son looking at college and I'm like, I don't have anything saved for that. And so it felt like this was going to be a way to do that. So, but for me, the bigger game plan was getting into real estate. So we actually owned a house. We've been in it for 10 years. We built up a ton of equity in that house. And so last year we decided to buy another house and put that one on the rental market. So now
nice.
The folks moved in. We have our first tenant moved in this week. So now we've
Congrats.
got that revenue.
That's nice.
Yeah, we've got that revenue working. We've got this house here but that transition of buying another house to move your family and all the expenses that go with it could not have happened. We would not have been able to make that work. We could have, the bank was fine to loan us the money because banks are always happy to loan you money. Like we qualified to actually pay 2 mortgages, but on a cash flow perspective and managing your expenses, having this extra income come in, and I, for 2 months last year, pretty well didn't even source because I was so busy with the move. And yet I was still getting sales coming in every day. And just having that extra bit of cash flow made it so much easier if I needed to pay an electrician, if I needed to pay a carpet cleaner, a moving company. It was like, I didn't have to think about it because I knew the cash was going to be there.
Absolutely. And so kind of finishing up here, last couple talking points. Is there anything you would do differently if you were starting again today, knowing what you know now?
That's a good question. I think the thing I'm learning now, and I don't know if I would do it differently, I might do it sooner, is just trust my instincts a little bit more, be willing to take some risks, realize that even when you make mistakes, it's all a part of growing your business. And so don't be afraid, to go in on something if you see it and it's a moneymaker, and then all of a sudden the market dries up or it gets flooded. You can typically at least get your money back out. So I think for me, being willing to take some bigger risks on inventory to grow my business a little faster would have been great. And then I think what I'm learning now is building good habits around processes, things like bookkeeping, tracking my purchases. Those are things that I'm just not naturally wired to do well. I don't like those. Those are like the non-sexy parts, because you like making the find, you like making the sale. You don't like having to record the sale. You don't like having to record your purchases. But if you can build good habits around that, it'll make life a lot easier, especially this time of the year.
Is your plan moving forward to continue to separate out of eBay and put more into Amazon, or are you going to
100%.
continue? Yeah,
it's a no-brainer. So my goal, I ended up let's see, I think the first year, so this will be, I just wrapped up my 3rd full year. Is that right? 2018.
Yeah, 2019, 20. Yeah.
So I went like it was like the first partial year I did like 8,000. Then the first full year I did like 24,000. Then I went to 70,000. And then my goal was like, okay, I'm going to hit 100,000. And so I was on track to hit 130. Then we bought the house. So all that we shut down for like 2 months. So even with that, I still came in at net 110,000 at the end of last year. So my goal this year, again, keep in mind, this is a side hustle for me.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. Man,
Yeah,
this is beautiful. Even
Yeah.
fractions of these numbers would help a lot of our viewers that are looking to do
So
something
my goal
similar.
this year is 175. And I feel like I'm going to get there pretty easily, even without, like this month. What I'm doing right now is I'm buying for FBA. So I'm trying to get as much as I can in to ship off to Amazon. So January, I have been clearing out my old eBay, all my old Ross and Burlington shoes. Like I've been doing an eBay sale and just really trying to transition over to FBA. So even in the midst of all of that and not really spending a lot of time focused on selling, I'll end up January somewhere in the $14,000 to $15,000 range top line. My goal is to be 175. So I mean, you know, you get to fourth quarter, you add that on there. I may end up topping 2 this year if I keep cranking the way I'm at.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's really cool that you've you know, really solidified all that work you've done, parked it in some place that'll grow wealth, be in that house. You know, maybe you'll continue to do that, maybe not, but either way, that is the type of stuff that can change, you know, course of family history and everything like that. That's amazing. I that's like my favorite part that no one really talks about is like, what's the point of actually making the money reselling? You know what I mean? It's to build things that'll work while we sleep and all that. And I think it's a great place to finish off. Just really cool hearing your story, multiple platforms with a 9 to 5. A lot of people out there looking to do something similar. So we have a great example of that. If our Buy Box Bandit viewers want to follow up with you, where can they find you on socials?
Mile High Hustle on Instagram.
Absolutely. It'll be,
find me.
yep, linked in the description. Thanks a lot for coming on with us. For listening this late in the episode, make sure to leave a like, leave a subscribe, maybe a review, comment, all that. But thank you guys for listening, and we will see you on Friday for another episode.